All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening. Welcome to the January 9th, 2025 meeting of the Minnetonka Planning Commission. The Commission generally meets on the first and third Thursdays of the month. The schedule and tentative agendas can be obtained by calling the Planning Department or by checking the city website at minnetonkamn.gov. The Commission holds public hearings on land use applications. From a specific process standpoint, that means we make recommendations to the City Council on rezonings, subdivisions, conditional use permits, and amendments to the city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations. We also make final decisions on site plans, signage requests, and variance requests, and expansion permits unless these requests are part of an application that must be heard by the City Council. In that case, the Commission makes a recommendation and the Council makes the final decision. The City notifies property owners within at least 400 feet of the sites, posts signs on the properties, and places notices in the Lakeshore Weekly News and the Minnetonka Memo. Any aggrieved party may appeal a final Planning Commission decision to the City Council. If you wish to appeal, you must submit a written request to the City within 10 days of this meeting. From a broader standpoint, the City's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations are the City's best efforts to codify a balance between individual rights and community responsibilities. Individual rights are easy to understand. Community responsibilities are more subtle, but the idea is that we, as members of the community, agree to limit our individual rights for the common good of the group. The Planning Department, the Planning Commission, and the City Council are charged with managing the sometimes difficult balancing act. We ask you keep this broader perspective in mind as we review tonight's applications. Again, welcome. Staff, please call roll.
Commissioner Maxwell. Here. Hanson.
Here.
Banks.
Here.
Henry is not present yet. And Chair Sewell.
Here, there are currently 4 of us seated, hopefully 5. Next is approval of the agenda, and there is a change memo.
Yes, Chair Sewell, there is a change memo with just some additional information regarding item 8A and the compliance with the tree ordinance. Our natural resources staff has confirmed that this project would comply, and Ms. Rains will talk more about that during her presentation.
Sounds good. Can't wait to hear about it. Thank you. Recognizing the change memo, would someone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Motion Banks.
I'll second.
Second Hanson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is approval of minutes from our December 5th, 2024 meeting. Any changes to those minutes? And then I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion Hanson.
Second.
Second Maxwell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is report from staff.
Chair and Commissioners, usually I will report on the City Council meeting that has come in between your meetings, but there has not been a City Council meeting since your last meeting, so nothing to report on that. Just comment that your next meeting will be January the 23rd. Let me get that right. Yep, January the 23rd. Planning Commission terms for some people are up on the 31st. So the council will be doing some reappointments at their next meeting. Commissioner Banks and Commissioner Waterman's terms are up for reappointment. They've both expressed interest in continuing to serve. And then Chair Sewell, your seat will be open as you've been with us for 8 years already. It flies by, or at least it does for city staff. So next meeting will be Chair Sewell's last meeting with us. I have nothing else to report on.
Great. Hopefully everyone had a happy holidays. Commissioners, anything to report? Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, congrats on 8 years. We're almost there. This is not planning commission related, but at my employer, we've had Minnetonka police officers posted up for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and I just want to say thanks to the city. Those officers have been 5 stars for us to have around, and have helped a lot of our team and our family kind of feel comfortable coming back to work. So just wanted to pass along a note of gratitude. So thanks.
That's great. It's always great to hear those messages for not just the people that you work with, but everybody in the city as well. Anything else to report? I've got one thing to report, just a huge and easy congratulations to Ms. Thomas on officially being appointed to the city planner. Is that the official title? Or is it?
Yes, thank you.
Did I get the
Yeah,
title right?
yep.
All right. And I joked with Ms. Wishnak that this is hopefully the easiest appointment that and hire that she has had to make. So, and a big testament is that again we haven't skipped a beat since your predecessor left. So, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done for the commission, the council, and everybody else, and congratulations on the new role. Much deserved. So, all right. Moving things along, next on the agenda is item number 7, which is consent agenda items. These are items that are routine in nature and will be passed with one motion unless someone would like to pull the item and have a full discussion on it. Otherwise, we will vote on those. The first item on tonight's consent agenda is item 7A, conditional use permit for an attached accessory dwelling unit at 2415 Bantus Point Road, and this is a recommendation the council adopt the resolution approving the requests. Commissioners, would anyone like to pull this item? Doesn't look like it. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to pull this item and have a full discussion on it? Doesn't look like it. All right, then I think we're probably ready to make a motion. Hello, Commissioner Henry. Perfect timing. We're about to vote on item 7A, the consent agenda. So would someone like to make a motion on item 7A?
I will make that motion.
And that's a motion to recommend the council adopt the resolution approving the request. Motion Hanson.
I'll second.
Second Banks. Staff, please poll the commission.
Hanson,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Chair Sewell.
Yes, motion carries. And this is a recommendation to be heard on January 27th of 2025. Good luck with your project. All right, moving along to item 8. Before we begin consideration of the non-consent agenda items, I'd like to review the steps in the process and the public hearing procedure that will be followed for each proposal. First, the item will be announced and staff will report on the subject. The commission will then ask questions. Next, the applicant will be invited to make a presentation or offer comments. Commissioners may ask additional questions at this time. After the applicant is finished, the public hearing will be open to give anyone present the opportunity to comment on the proposal. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your comments brief and try not to repeat points already made. Once everyone has spoken, we may allow speakers to return for additional comments at larger meetings. The public hearing will then be closed and no further comments will be allowed. The commission will discuss the proposal and make a decision. The first item on tonight's non-consent agenda item is item 8A, an expansion permit for an addition to the existing house and conditional use permit for an attached accessory dwelling unit at 4546 Highland Road. It's a recommendation the council adopt the resolution approving the request. Ms. Rains, this is your item.
Thank you, Chair Sewell. Commissioners. So as you mentioned, tonight's first items for the expansion permit for an addition onto the existing home and the conditional use permit for the conversion of the existing home into an accessory dwelling unit at 4546 Highland Road.
Chair Sewell, we have the wrong presentation that was pulled up here, so.
No worries. Tell a story or a joke or something. Take your time.
There we go.
Now we're cooking.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
The subject property is on Highway 7 on the south side, just generally west of Highland Road. It is accessed off of Highway 7 and has a secondary access off of Highland Road, which is a private driveway. The property is approximately 1.24 acres. It's improved with a single-family home, single-stall garage, attached single-stall garage, a detached garage, and then existing driveway. The existing home is roughly 1,700 square feet in size. It was built in 1940, which is prior to the establishment of the city's first zoning ordinance. So this means that this house is non-conforming. A conforming setback from Highway 7 or this front property line would be 50 feet. This house is currently at 40.12. And just some history on the site. This property in general, next to it, excuse me, that property was subdivided in 2002, and at that time there was a condition of approval in that subdivision for Highland Corner that by the creation of these two parcels, utilizing the private driveway that, excuse me, it's not shown on here, there is a private driveway, any further subdivision of the properties to the west would result in the closure of the access from Highway 7. So I just say that because it was an existing condition and we're just reaffirming that in the conditions for this project. So the proposal for this property would be the addition onto the existing house. For the addition, they do have to remove the existing garage. And then this house, the existing portion of the house, would become an ADU. Property owners are planning to use that for relatives. Regardless, our city code sees that as a rental or accessory dwelling, excuse me, not a rental, accessory dwelling unit, which requires a conditional use permit. The proposed addition would be at 40.26 feet away from the front property line. So that also would not meet today's standard, but the proposal is asking for an expansion permit to be set back utilizing the non-conforming setback. In the proposal as well, you'll see a rain garden that's required for the project based off the redevelopment and the disturbance to the land for the grading and such for the addition and the new driveway. The yellow is the new driveway, which is slightly widened. And one of our code requirements is that it must be paved, so that is part of their proposal. So in the report, initially it said that we didn't have a complete inventory. As mentioned in the change memo, we did receive a full inventory, which has been reviewed by Natural Resources staff. It shows that the proposal now meets the city code standard for the tree protection ordinance. So they're proposing 11 trees that are high priority for removal, which is 32.4%, and then no significant trees. This is slightly different than in the report. It did mention that there was only one significant tree shown. We looked again, it was an error in the inventory. The noted significant tree for removal was actually a high priority tree. So based off our code standards, the project will meet the city code for the ADU requirements of the under the conditional use ordinance, and then also for the addition for the expansion permit standards and the tree protection ordinance, excuse me. And although only 44 trees are mentioned as protected, many of them are ash. There was 77 that were ash, and those are not protected by code. And I just showed you the inventory. The red is all the ash trees. Okay. Shown on the screen is the existing floor plan in this cloud box. That is for the detached garage, which is not within the scope of the project. This is the floor plan for the existing home. Again, that is the garage to be removed. The proposal would have 3 stories. One would be at ground level with some grade on the back, and then the other 2 would be above grade. The ADU would be lower level and at the first level. So this is the first level, showing the ADUs still attached. And then the second level would be bedrooms. And then the elevation of the home, we use this to determine the height. Based off our code, the height is approximately 26 feet. And that's measured from grade to the midpoint of the roof. Although there is a change in grade, we measure from the higher point. If there was a difference of more than 10 feet, it would slightly change the measurement, but for this, it's 26 feet. Oops. So for the expansion permit, conditional use permit, and for the tree protection ordinance, we found that all standards were met. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval for the City Council to approve, the resolution. With that, I return it to you, Chair Sewell.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Yeah, Commissioner Henry, you have a question?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Can you talk about, I didn't read it in the ordinance, but was the city evaluating the size of the house? Maybe it's beyond the scope of this one, but with the McMansion policy, it's going from 1,700 to 6,450 square feet. I'm just curious about the city researched or thought about that.
Chair Sewell, Commissioner Henry. So the McMansion policy comes into play when it is a variance. This is an expansion permit.
That answers the question, thanks. And we could ask it later on, but since I'm asking questions, I suppose I can keep doing it now. So the proposal is to turn the existing house into an ADU, and the existing house has a square footage of 1,700 square feet, but later in the report says the ADU has a total square footage of 960 square feet. Can you talk about the discrepancy there?
Chair Sewell, Commissioner Henry. So the difference is that the code defined square footage is 900 feet. So the basement has no outdoor access with the garage being removed. So that's where the 900 comes in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good questions. Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Maxwell.
Yeah, I have a question just sort of from my own understanding. I think of expansion permit or addition as something that's going to be inferior to the main structure in size, and here the new structure is significantly larger than the existing structure. So what makes that expansion versus a new build, for example?
Chair Sewell and Commissioner Maxwell, it's probably the language that we use in expansion permit, because it sounds like we're, as you said, just adding on to a small area. But the expansion of permit actually would apply even if they tore down the entire building, and we've had this in the past, and rebuilt a much larger building on the site. It's really expanding along a non-conforming setback. So not expansion of the building, but expanding along a non-conforming setback is probably the way to look at it. But I can think of, probably in the last 15 years since we've had this, probably 5 or 6 actual full tear down and rebuilds of homes that have also utilized that expansion permit mechanism.
Thanks, Ms. Thomas.
Good question. Any other questions? All right, doesn't look like it. If the applicant would like to come forward and offer any additional comments or presentation, feel free. Not interested? Okay, fair enough. All right, then we will open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and comment on this item, feel free. But no obligation. Doesn't look like it, so we will close the public hearing. All right, commissioners, thoughts and opinions? Yeah, Commissioner Henry.
Follow-up question for either the city or the applicant on this one too. In the plans, it shows the bituminous driveway area extending toward the back, and it looks like it's, if you can pull up that picture, looks like it's in preparation for accessing via that private shared driveway once the subdivision ordinance kicks in. And is that something that you talk with the homeowner about that? Is that going to be paved all the way to the back right up front? It's kind of a large scope question, but does the city anticipate closing off the access to Highway 7 in the near future, and that's why they put on the paved part all the way to the back?
Commissioner, Chair, Commissioner Henry. The applicant hasn't mentioned wanting to move forward with a subdivision. We did discuss about a subdivision. So from my understanding, these are not plans to prepare for a future subdivision. We don't limit where they can propose a parking pad. From what I see, it looks like the part that juts out would be a parking pad, probably for the ADU. It's closer to the ADU than the garage. But we don't limit where they can put a parking pad as long as it's on their property. We don't have setback requirements, so that's not something that we would give them comments to change.
I didn't see it in the picture, but is this the area of the of the shared driveway? That's the private driveway extending into the neighboring lot?
Correct. It's dashed. It's hard to see this. So there's 3 lines. The middle is the center. The 2 are the outsides. But that is the easement for the shared driveway.
Okay, so it looks like if that had to go through, then this is in preparation for extending that driveway out through the other 3 properties.
I would say it would definitely help, but when we've discussed, they would need to remove the access to Highway 7, and they're going to be paving it, which is a big investment, so that's not their plans at this time. But in the future, if someone did want to, they would be required to remove that access.
Thanks.
Yes.
Can you talk about what triggers the subdivision? I forget the suffix of what you called it too, but would that be specifically dividing this property into 2 or more properties, as well as that would be the trigger for the property next door too?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question, but yes.
Thank you.
Did you want to comment or about the driveway? You don't have to, but first, can you just give us your name and address for the record?
Larry, Louisiana, 4546 Highland Road. So to the east, that all of those folks come in off the paved drive off of Highland Road. The driveway that we have on 7, I guess we've negotiated with our neighbors that is effectively them driving across our lawn because it isn't a part of the agreement that's in place. So we are the only people who use it, and realistically we try to avoid using it. But to answer your question directly, the reason it's a little bit square is we want to put in a basketball court there. And so the intention is to kind of leverage that parking pad as a basketball court for my son.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. So just to further clarify, you're saying that you put it out there so eventually you will access your house from that shared driveway, or that's the
We
future
currently
plan?
access our house from the shared driveway.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, like it comes all the way down. And we sparingly access our house from Highway 7
Oh, I see.
because it is access off of Highway 7. And it's just, if you want to come in from the east, you have to go all the way down and turn around to come back, and it's just easier to turn off of Woodland Drive.
Thanks. Maybe I was confused about what you're talking about driving on your property. What was that?
So there's an agreement because effectively the driveway that we have going to the east, that is an easement that we have across the other 3 properties. And so this driveway is not a part of that agreement. And so we locally we treat them as separate access points.
Oh, I see. So the shared driveway ends at your property line, and then you
Correct.
make the driveway wherever you deem
Correct.
most
I mean,
beneficial.
the shared drive right now it's paved, so the shared driveway ends at the end of the pavement, and then the rest is all just gravel.
Okay, and thanks for the clarification.
Great, thank you. All right, commissioners, I think we're probably ready for comments now. And thoughts? Commentary? Who'd like to go first? Yeah, Commissioner Maxwell, thanks for going first.
Yeah, I'm in support of this, given especially that it fronts Highway 7 and we have no comments from neighbors on the significant increase in the amount of impervious surface or blocking somebody's view or impinging on somebody else's land or rights. I see no issue with this.
Great, thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Henry?
Thank you. After some clarifying statements, it seems like it does make sense, and it's well within the homeowners' rights to do what they're doing, and I think it falls within what the city should be doing in terms of smart development where people want to improve their property and have their family and friends come over. So it seems like it's a good use of what they're doing. So I'm in support of this also.
Great, thank you. Other comments? All right, doesn't look like it. I also support it. I was also confused by the terminology, so thank you, Commissioner Maxwell, for clarifying that. But yeah, I support this as well. It's quite the addition if it's an addition. So I think we're probably all in agreement here. So would someone like to make a motion to adopt the resolution, recommending the City Council adopt the resolution approving the request for an expansion permit for an addition to the existing house and conditional use permit for an attached accessory dwelling unit at 4546 Highland Road?
I don't make that motion.
Motion Hanson.
I'll second the motion.
Second Henry. Staff, please poll the commission.
Hanson,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Maxwell,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Chair Sewell.
Yes, motion carries. And this is a recommendation to be heard by the City Council on January 27th. Good luck with your project. All right, moving on to item 8B, resolution approving a tree removal variance and the order of stipulation for the redevelopment of 16808 Prospect Place. And this is a recommendation the City Council adopt the resolution approving the variance. Ms. Raines, this is your item again.
Thank you, Chair Sewell. So the second item on tonight's agenda is for Kalman Residence at 16808 Prospect Place. The request is for a variance to the tree protection ordinance. This is a unique report. Typically, variances are reviewed and voted on by the Planning Commission. However, this request is required due to premature tree removal, which staff is recommending to have an order of stipulation related for that unapproved work. An order of stipulation is a legal document that outlines the terms agreed upon by the city and the property owners based on that violation, and an order of stipulation must be approved by the City Council. So that's why tonight you're just making a recommendation. These orders of stipulation are rare, doesn't happen often. The last one was in 2019 for tree removal. That one was for a pretty large amount. To provide some background, this permit came forward initially with some initial talks with staff, so before a building permit was provided. At that time, staff met, generally talked about building code standards, setbacks, things like that. We did exchange a few emails in the fall and reminded the applicant that tree information was missing, which is part of the building permit requirements. Building permit was applied for in late October through our online permitting system. Staff reviewed, made comments about the missing tree inventory. Natural Resources staff commented and even provided direct code language, again, just referring to the standards that we're looking for the tree inventory and survey. The permit was resubmitted for a second round of reviews. At that time, an inventory and survey was provided, but the information conflicted. They did not agree. So our Natural Resources staff asked for clarification. At that time, there was a phone call with the property owner that explained that some of the trees had already been removed a week or so prior. The next day, our Natural Resources staff went to the site, and then he reported his findings. He reported that 4 trees had been physically removed. There were 6 healthy trees on site. The 5th one was damaged to the point that critical root zone was impacted 40%. By our code, once it's over 30% of damage to the critical root zone, it is considered a loss. So that's how we came to the number of 5. The tree protection ordinance, again, is for healthy trees. It protects them. So these numbers do not include invasive trees such as buckthorn, and it would not include any poor health trees, which were also removed from the property at that time. Today there are 2 trees standing. Tree number 6 is healthy and was untouched. Tree number 3 with the red X, that was one that had critical root zone damage and is considered a loss. By our code, the site would have been allowed to remove 2 of the 6 trees. However, 2 significant trees were removed and 3 high priority trees were removed. At this time, staff is recommending approval of the variance, because the property is currently in violation. A property in violation cannot be issued a building permit. That means that since the house is currently demoed, without the violation being resolved, we would not be able to issue any permit for a new home. So staff therefore believes it's reasonable to approve the variance with the order of stipulations. And of those, the first is that a tree mitigation plan, which is shown above, must be provided, showing 32 inches, this is for replacement, 32 inches of deciduous trees, and then 32 feet of coniferous trees. Our natural resources staff reviewed this and said it exceeds those mitigation requirements. The second order would be for the plantings to be completed before building inspections are done for the final inspection on the home. And then a maintenance agreement, which explains how they plan to ensure the survival of the plantings for 1 year. And the last one is for a fine for the tree removals. So instead of asking, staff is allowed to ask for $500 to $2,000 per tree removal or violation. So instead of asking for 5 removals, so $10,000, staff thinks it's more reasonable to ask for $6,000, which would be for 3 trees, because the 3 trees go beyond what was allowed by code. Again, code would have allowed 2 tree removals. They removed 5. Staff did receive 1 comment on the project. It is in the change memo. It is against the variance. Staff, however, is recommending, again, approval of the variance and the recommendation and the order of stipulation for the recommendation of the Planning Commission to the City Council to adopt this variance and order of stipulation. The applicant is in the audience, and I also stand for questions. I return it to you, Chair Sewell.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Banks, you're ready to go.
Just one question. Thanks, Chair. Just one quick question about the order for stipulation. It says that the trees must be replaced at a rate of 2 to 1. So are they replacing 10 trees? Do I have that correct?
Commissioner, so the rates are based off of inches and feet.
Okay. So what's the number of trees that they would be required to replace?
Whatever comes up to that cumulatively, excuse me. So
If I could add on also, Chair Sewell, to even further that, what Ms. Rains indicated, it would be like, they could choose to replace with many little 2-inch trees. That's the minimum size tree we would allow under the tree replacement ordinance. Or they could choose to replace with fewer but larger caliper trees.
All right, thank you.
Just to clarify, the trees have already been removed, right? Okay. I was just looking at the comment that was emailed in, but the trees are already removed, so we're not granting a variance to remove additional trees. The trees have already been removed. Okay, great, thank you. Other questions, commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Henry?
In the case that the Planning Commission rejects the proposal, does that mean that the city can't issue a building permit?
Commissioner, that is correct.
Thank you.
Other questions? Doesn't look like it. If the applicant would like to come forward and offer any comments, any color, we'd love to hear from you. If you give us your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Good evening, Todd Coleman, 16808 Prospect Place. I appreciate the opportunity to address the commission, and I have to tell you, I'd like to start just by telling you who we are real quick and what our intent is and what our intent isn't. So we're a family of 4. I have 2 kids in college. One goes to school in state and one goes out of state in Iowa. My wife and I, Alyssa, when we were married, we originally lived in Minnetonka. Through a series of things that had happened, we moved. But we stayed in Minnesota our whole adulthood and quite frankly, my whole life. We ended up moving to Plymouth and ultimately to Orono, but it was our intent to move back to Minnetonka. And when this house hit the market, we were really excited, and we bid on it. We went over the asking price. That's how badly we wanted to be in that neighborhood. We were actually stalking that neighborhood for quite some time, call it even close to a year. It was, I think it's fair to say that if you hear what was read, and I don't disagree with what was said, we cut the trees down. It sounds like we're tree monsters, like we don't like trees, and that's just not the fact. In fact, when we lived in Plymouth, we had many trees on our property, and even more when we lived in Orono. We had an apple tree in our front yard and a weeping willow in the backyard. Large, very, very large weeping willow. And it split in a storm down the middle. And it was recommended that we take the tree down. And the apple tree in the front had something called apple scab, and it also had some other disease. And a rainbow tree care came out, and it would be thousands of dollars to save those trees. And we did it. Paid, I think it was $3,200 for the apple tree over time, and I think it was close to $5,000 or $6,000 to save the willow. They actually had to band it together and put bolts through it. So we're not people that like to cut trees down. This is not who we are. It's not, but and as a matter of fact, like I said, it makes us kind of sound like we're monsters against trees, and anything, I'd say we made a mistake. We cut down trees without going through the proper process. This is the first, call it, house that we've ever bought for the purpose of building a new house. I've never built a house before. It doesn't absolve us of the wrongdoing or the penalties of doing it. But I wanted you to know who you're working with here. I'm not in construction. I work in software, and we spent the better part of the summer after purchasing the house speaking with our neighbors and learning who they were. We also spent a large amount of time. This house was in distress when we bought it. This house wasn't just a homeowner that put it up for sale. This house was in distress. I believe it was the Department of Justice took the house back from the person living there, and we bought it through traditional methods with a real estate agent, but the seller was the Department of Justice. So we had a mess on our hands, and we really cleaned up that lot. There was everything from a canoe that was dilapidated to a garage full of surprises that believe me, you don't want anything in there, to a shed that had even more, to, it was just a mess. And it was, in my opinion, that house was in very, very poor condition. Believe me when I tell you this, our intent wasn't to buy this and hurt the people of Minnetonka by crossing a tree policy, or any policy for that matter. We feel bad. We are truly sorry. It's not who we are. And we want to make it right. Absolutely want to make it right. You asked about the tree commissioner, or the amount of trees, and it amounted to 33 trees and shrubs. Which we had plans to put trees up anyway. But 33, this is a quarter acre lot. I'll just show you real quick. I just brought this, I don't know if this is helpful or not. I know there's cameras and I should show it for that too.
I think we have it on the screen,
Oh,
so
look at that.
we should be good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great. So it's a quarter acre lot, and it's kind of a funny shape, which posed a lot of challenges in designing a home that would fit on that lot. We're not building a mansion. We A, don't have the means to do so, and B, don't have the desire to do so. Again, we're empty nesters. But 33 trees and bushes will make that property somewhat of a dense forest, and a good one. I like trees, again. It's fine. I'll tell you, in doing it and not, like I said, I want to be careful, because I'm not saying that what we did was right. It was wrong, clearly, if you look at your city code. That alone, the 33 trees with delivery and install, comes to $21,455. It's a stiff. I'd say anybody else that ever buys a property and decides to cut a tree down without a permit, I think that would be a really good deterrent. The time factor, it's months. I know, Bria, you talked about, it was in October, right? And we wanted to put shovels in the ground and dig before the winter. It's very, very expensive to do winter construction. You sometimes have to thaw the land. You have to heat the project. It's expensive, but so we had that cost, and then on top of it, $6,000 has been recommended in fines. Again, I'll say we're by all means not wealthy. It's not. We got lucky in a couple things, and we really saved hard and want to build this house. But again, it's not a mansion. It's modest, and it fits the neighborhood, and I think it fits it well. And we really plan on adding value to our neighborhood and to the city of Minnetonka by being good neighbors and doing what's right and righting what we've done wrong. I would ask that, considering everything, that perhaps we look at the lower end of the fine at $500 a tree. I would appreciate any sort of consideration for that. And again, if that's not what you decide, then we'll live with what you decide. We've come here to say we're sorry and to not fight. That's not who we are. We're, like I said, we've been very good neighbors for the people we've lived next to in Plymouth and Orono, and prior to that, Minnetonka, and we intend to be good neighbors to the people in our neighborhood as well as the city of Minnetonka, and you won't hear from us doing wrong again. It was not with ill intent, and that I can promise you. So, I think we have that. Also, I know there's some neighbors that came to speak, but we went around the neighborhood as soon as we learned of the wrongdoing. We talked to the neighbors, and I kind of brought I'm not an artist, so I apologize, but brought a little map here of the neighbors that we spoke to that understand what we're doing, and quite frankly, if they didn't like what we were doing, then we would want their input on the tree situation, because again, they not by choice, they live next to us now. They will, and we want to make it a happy thing, not a something that's not joyous. So there's that. Here's the 33 trees that we plan to build. Now, those numbers I gave you, we were getting the cost from Gertens, and that's who we plan to do business with. I think they're a really good nursery. But you can see there's Norway spruces, there's Parkland polar birches. These are beautiful trees. These aren't trees that are. These are beautiful trees that we're not trying to just comply. We're trying to make this a really nice project and something the neighborhood will be happy with. So, and I think we got some pictures too of some of the house prior. I think this is important. When we were informed of our wrongdoing, Luke, we contacted Luke, and he said that he was going to do a study, look at Google Maps, and we said, oh, we've got photos of what we took down, current photos, and we'll turn those over to you. So we weren't trying to hide anything. We weren't trying to say we didn't do it. We were trying to make it easier for him to understand what we had done wrong, and easier for us to understand what we've done wrong to make it good, okay? So I've got pictures. I can pass them around. I don't know if that's pertinent, if that's...
You can hand them to staff.
Yes, thank you.
They can put them up.
Oh, I got more. That's pretty much what I have to say. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm pretty transparent with this stuff.
Great. Thank you. Commissioners,
you.
any questions for the applicant? I don't think so. Oh, yeah, sorry. Commissioner Maxwell has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Coleman. I will have the same question for staff as well, but given the unusual shape of the lot and the size of the lot,
Yeah.
do you see that there would be a way to build a modest home on that site without removal of all of these trees? Is it absolutely necessary, or was it
It's
just a
great
mistake?
question. No, it's a great question. Couple things. I know you noted there was no damage. These, from our vantage point, now you got to understand, I'm not an expert, right? The roots were very shallow. We were going to demo the house. So we looked at it and thought, well, we got to take those down, right? So it was more about the demo. And then, yes, we'll be building over the land where that tree was. So this again, you're dealing with somebody that truly didn't know, and that is no excuse. But that's also why I'm apologizing and letting you know what we're trying to do to make it right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Henson, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Coleman. I'm just trying to get my arms
Sure.
wrapped around like the order of operations here. So when did you cut down the trees? And then when do you feel like you heard from the city, hey, we need a...
Could I have my wife come up?
For-
She's got those facts better than I do.
Yeah, so I don't know, I just
No,
trying
that's
to
a great
get
question.
grounded in what happened.
I think that's a great question.
Alyssa Coleman.
Thanks.
I took the trees down September 17th,
Okay,
and the building permit wasn't applied for until October 24th.
got it. Okay,
So I did this as a homeowner.
sure. Okay, thank you.
That answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the date.
All right. Sounds good. Any other questions? Yeah, Commissioner Henry has a question.
Yeah, this could be for either you or Alyssa too, but
Okay.
thanks Todd for coming in,
sure.
and full disclosure, appreciate that, and it's nice to see that there's no trying to be covering anything up too, but can you talk about, because in the city's report, it talked about a lot of communication that happened with talking about there's things missing from certain applications, and there's a few that went on, yet from what you're talking about, it sounds like you were surprised and you didn't know that there was any misdoings going on. So from your perspective, what do you think was the disconnect in communication with you and the city?
I think originally we had a surveyor who didn't put the trees on, and this is the first house I've ever built. This is the first surveyor I had worked with on a personal project, and I didn't know that was supposed to be on there. And so it was added after it was requested.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? I don't think so, but we'll have you back if we have more.
Yes,
So,
please do.
thank you.
Okay.
All right. We will open the public hearing. If anyone would like to come forward and offer a comment on this item, feel free to come forward and offer your name and address for the record. And offer any comments. Good evening. Welcome.
My name is Pete Anderson. Address is 3113 Shores Boulevard. I live right to the west of this property. My house connects with them. And I'm hard of hearing, so I'm trying to understand, were they informed prior to taking the trees down, or?
We'll have that answered at the end. So if you have more comments or other questions.
Regarding the trees, our neighbor suddenly disappeared, the previous owner, and the grass was more like hay, so I went over and mowed the grass for him. And they had a really big white pine right in front of the house. And it just so happens at our lake home, we had a big white pine. And if you looked up about 12, 14 feet, it was just loaded with woodpecker holes. And I had a forester come look at it, and he said, "Get this thing out of here. It's diseased." And so while I was mowing the grass, out of curiosity, I looked up, and that tree was worse than ours at the lake. So I firmly believe that tree would have come down anyways. Regarding taking the trees down, I was there when they demoed the house. There's no way they could have gotten their equipment in there and taken that house down without getting rid of at least 2 of the trees in the front yard. So, and I heard something about construction, that they had done some kind of construction without a permit there. There was nothing like that that occurred there. The only thing I saw that resembled construction, my wife noticed that the house had been vandalized. The windows were all smashed out, and they had a big glass front door that was smashed out. And we called the Minnetonka police. They informed the owners, and the owners were there the very next morning and plywooded everything up and sealed it up. So, and I mean, they've kept the lawn in comparison to what it was. It's beautiful. One other question I had, are you requesting that they plant 33 trees on that lot?
We'll answer your question at the end. We'll answer all the questions at the end.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll let you know. Either way,
Because if you put 33 trees on that lot, you won't have room to put an outhouse on it.
fair enough.
So,
Well, thank you for mowing the lawn too, by
yeah,
the way. I appreciate it.
and also, I don't know if someone's driven by the property and they see this great big pile of root balls that the demo company dug up. You should take at least 2 of those and totally disregard them. The previous landowner or previous owner cut trees down, and he left them about this high and never finished them off. He used to set his canoe on top of them. So, and those were big trees. They were probably like this big around. So 2 of the root balls that are in their front yard, those were dead anyways. They were rotten.
Okay.
So,
Great. Thank you. We'll
Yep.
answer your questions at the end, I promise. Okay?
Thank you.
you.
Hi,
good
Kathy
evening.
Sampson. I live at 16805 Cottage Grove Avenue. My husband and I have been there for 43 years. We're to the north
Okay.
of their property. I see no reason for charging them so much money. I would agree with hopefully the new owner with the $500 a tree. And that's what I've got to say.
All right. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ilse Gall. I live next door to my new neighbors that I'm very excited for them to move in next door with us. And I just want to first speak to their character because upon purchasing the home, we were so curious to see what would happen because being so close to the lake, we are kind of a prime neighborhood for spec builders to come in and maximize lot line to lot line, these 2-story block houses. Anything that goes up that's new. And so I was kind of anxiously awaiting who was going to be moving next door to me and was delighted to meet Todd and Alyssa. They introduced themselves day one and were just the most open and like friendly people that I could hope for next door. And when they shared their plans with us, we were so grateful to see that it was a 1-story home and that it would just blend in so nicely. So they were very conscious of aesthetics and how they would be impacting their neighbors. And so we're just really excited for them to be near us. I just also want to point out we've lived next door to that property for 23 years. and the house was most definitely in disrepair for the entirety of our 23 years being next door to it. And so we're very excited for what's coming, and I really hope the city is in support of getting them into building as quickly as possible, because the gaping hole next door and giant root balls is not our preferred aesthetic for the next winter and spring. I also want to let you know that I spoke to my next door neighbor on the other side, Bob and Fel Whittorf, as well as Rolf Grodal across the street, who asked me to speak on their behalf as well, that they're very excited for the plans. We've all seen the plans, and we are eager to see the build move forward as soon as possible. I also just want to say that this process has been really stressful, and I'm a little confused and why the flyer would go out on December 24th and have a closed window of January 3rd for us to give comment. We were out of town and actually missed the window to make comment because of winter break between Christmas and New Year's. And so I came tonight because I didn't really feel like I had another opportunity to interact, because we missed the mailer that came out while we were gone. So I guess I was just kind of maybe curious if that was just an oversight or what, but it just seemed like a short timeline over holiday break just didn't seem like the most open venue for getting feedback from community. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Doesn't look like it. We'll close the public hearing. I'll turn to staff for a few questions. Going back just real quick on the timeline, when the applicant was informed that they weren't in compliance with the tree ordinance, or they had maybe crossed the tree ordinance, can you just quickly or briefly state the timeline?
Yes, Chair Sewell. So from emails that I was looking at while you were all talking, staff confirmed the removals on the 27th of November. That was after a phone call. Before that, we had no knowledge of the trees being removed. September 6th, there was a email sent asking for the tree information, saying it still had not been provided, and we needed it.
Got it. So the city had not received the tree information.
Correct.
Which it sounds like that was an issue
That was
with
the
this
first,
survey.
sorry, the earliest email that I have found, yes.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. And then the question about what is being requested that they replace. Can you maybe just summarize briefly what's being requested? Not necessarily what they are choosing to do, but what is being requested. Or required, maybe, is the better term. I don't know.
Chair Sewell, for mitigation, so for the removal of the trees, they're required to replace up to 32 inches of deciduous trees. So you can choose how you want to add up to that 32 inches.
32 inches
for
of
deciduous,
trees. Okay.
the leafy ones, yep.
Yep.
And then 32 feet for conifers.
Okay. 32 inches and 32 feet, not 33 trees.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Inches and feet.
Or. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sorry, okay. Fair enough, thank you. And then the final question I have is about just the comments window when the mailer, Ms. Wishnak, maybe you can comment on that, when the mailer went out and when comments were closed.
Chair Sewell, so I just pulled up the postcard just to double check our wording. So we do accept comments after it's worded. Your comments submitted by January 3rd will be included in the meeting materials. That's because we have to post it online. So it doesn't say that we won't accept it after. It just says it would be posted by that day online.
Maybe that's feedback going forward, just to clarify the language a little bit, because again, we got a comment, not on the 3rd, it looks like, of January, so they're still included, and there's still also the opportunity to do it in person, as some of the neighbors have tonight, so maybe that's just feedback going forward.
And Chair, also just to comment for those that may not be aware of the city's legal requirements. So the city doesn't get to determine when we post things, when we send out mailers, when we need feedback back by, it's all dictated by the date of the Planning Commission meeting and by state statute and by our own city charter.
Okay.
And so the fact that it fell on the 24th of December, I would agree with you,
Yes.
is not, was not optimal, certainly,
Sure.
but it was the city following the regulations that we need to follow that are outlined in those other legal documents.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then the final question is, there's some discussion on the amount of the mitigation in terms of dollar. We'll call it a fine. However that was arrived to, I don't know if that's up for discussion, debate. That's kind of a can of worms, and I don't know that we're necessarily qualified, but I want to just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Chair, Ms. Wishnak dealt with our most recent order of stipulation, and so I think she would have the best.
Ms. Wishnak, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Planning Commissioners. I think the issue here is anytime an order of stipulation is required with a project, the goal is to be fair and consistent. And this order that has been developed is consistent. We've had a few cases, unfortunately, where people have done this. And I mean, the problem with ignoring it, reducing it, that people will tend to do it again. And so I think the staff in the analysis was being fair by the amount because they understood some of the removal had to happen. But to be fair and consistent with other people that have had violations, this is the amount that has been charged as well. So I would give you that information. It is a final decision of the council, not the Planning Commission.
Okay.
You can surely give them advice. I'm sure
Sure.
they would take it. But your role is really about the tree variance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which leads into the building permit, which is why we're here. So, all right, thank you. Any other final questions for staff? Otherwise, love to hear comments. What do we think? Who'd like to go first? Commissioner Henry, you're ready.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, city staff, and thanks applicant and neighbors and everybody for giving us a more clear picture of what's happening with the situation. Full disclosure for the audience too, I serve on the city's Sustainability Commission, and part of our goal is to make sure that we retain what makes Minnetonka unique in the community in terms of things like maintaining the tree canopy and providing good environment for everybody. So naturally, when I first read this, I thought, I feared the worst and thought, wow, there's a lot of nefarious actions going on too, and why cut down trees if you're not supposed to cut them down? And I am a big believer in the tree ordinance, and I was heartened to hear after you're talking that it sounds like you're big believers in it as well. And I'm glad to see that you're going above and beyond what the mitigation requirements recommend. I think that shows as a testament to what neighbors you propose to be. I also am a big believer in clear communication, and to have your neighbors here, that shows that you have communicated with them and you're showing that you plan to be a good steward of the community. They're in full support, so that lends a lot of weight, not just for me, but I think for the rest of the commission. When things like this come up, if we didn't hear from anybody else, then we'd have a different picture about what's happening. So the biggest order on hand is if we deny the variance, then that means you can't build a house, and for me that doesn't seem reasonable. And I like to make sure that the city develops in a proper way. So for me, the main question here is to approve the variance, and I am definitely in favor of approving the variance. It seems like it's the reasonable thing to do. And was the ordinance, was there a violation of the ordinance? Yes, there was. But trying to atone for that violation, I think you're again going above and beyond that one. So I applaud you for doing that, and I look forward to supporting the building of the house, and look forward to seeing how the community develops around having better neighbors in the community, in your neighborhood. I'm not sure if our purview is to talk about what we think about the $2,000 fee per tree. Is that something maybe you can turn to the city? Should we address that? Should we not?
I think if you have an opinion, you can free to share it. It's not going to affect, and we won't have it in the language and what we vote on tonight, but I think if you want to direct the council with your opinion, I think that's probably reasonable.
And Chair, just to be clear for the record, the stipulation order would not change based on your conversation. However, the minutes of your discussion would be included.
Correct. Yep. So I will leave that back to you, Commissioner Henry.
Okay. Well, my opinion of that is it does seem like the city defined it to be fair and consistent. I really would not like to see people read the minutes of this, and I'm not sure what our reading audience is, but I think a fair number of people do read the minutes of these commission meetings. But if other people would have similar ideas and to find out, oh, it only cost me this much to do, and I don't want to set a dangerous precedent. On the other hand, I feel for the homeowners, it's a pretty high fee that you have to pay for putting the new trees in too. But in terms of all things equal, I have to say that I do agree with the city on this case. So I wouldn't like it definitely as a homeowner, but it seems like it's something that needs to happen from the city's perspective. So I'm in support of that, as well as approval of the variance.
Great, thank you. Other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I'd applaud the homeowner and the applicant tonight. I think it shows that there's positive intent behind everything. So with that, I also think the city and the homeowner are kind of caught between a rock and a hard place a little bit. So I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer to support the variance, in my opinion. You know, kind of pairing that thought with my compliment to the homeowner, I think the plan itself is super reasonable, and I think there's not a ton of times when we come here with a new build, essentially, where it's applauded heavily by the neighborhood. So I think everything there makes sense. In terms of the fine, my gut reaction is, I think, one, for us as a planning commission, we probably just got to work with the staff on how is this part of the tree ordinance working, and what does the enforcement actually look like. Maybe it's different, or maybe we need to just refine a little bit how it works for a single family or a one homeowner versus like a large plot of land. I don't know if that's clearly defined, but maybe there's something there for us to kind of kick the tires on. Maybe just taking a step back to this project, if I'm being candid, like I'd say, I feel like taking like $1,000 step back right into the middle feels fair. So it's totally arbitrary. I'd say 5,000 because it's right in the middle of what I've heard tonight is the fine. So there's not a ton of science there, but I'm not super scientific, you know what I mean? So that said, it kind of comes back to I'd support the homeowner, welcome you to Minnetonka, and just don't cut down any more trees without a phone call. So welcome to the community.
Other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Maxwell?
Yeah, Commissioner Hanson said a lot of what I was going to say, or I'll maybe say the same thing in different words. I am in support of the variance of the tree ordinance in this particular case. When I gave comments when we were developing this tree ordinance, in my mind, I was picturing subdivision of large undeveloped properties, like what was the 1 Acre Oaks property as an example, or development of properties into large multifamily homes. I was not picturing this type of small single family property. And so I think some consideration needs to be made for demolition of existing properties on small properties especially, because that 50% limit for significant and 35% limit for high priority, when you have a very small property with a small number of trees, really can come down to one tree. And if it's very close to your house, it's not really practical to be able to save every tree in every case. And then, as we heard from one of the neighbors and from the applicant, that adding a significant number of trees on the property to replace what was taken down may not really be the right fit for that particular property. I think I would like to, either as a commission and a council or staff, I think it makes sense to sort of re-look at the tree ordinance now that we've had it for a year, look at in which cases has it worked well, what's working, what do we like about it, and in what cases hasn't it. So which developments have we implemented it on, and what has been the impact, and is it actually doing for the city what we hoped it would do?
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Banks, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, staff, for the presentation, and to the, make sure it says right, Coleman family. Thank you for the information you provided. It was great information. You know, it feels, and I hate to interject feelings in this decision that I'm going to make, but it feels like an honest mistake. And I hope I'm true in that. And it also, and I believe that what you're trying to do, go over and beyond to correct that mistake, is admirable. You know, I think we have to figure out a way to make sure that you know, anyone who wants to build a home, especially someone who is new to our community, maybe come from a different area where, you know, maybe there is no tree ordinance, you know, some cities don't, how we communicate that and make sure that, you know, before you, you know, break ground, you know, hopefully your developer is someone who understands that. It sounds like the surveyor did not understand that, but I'm sure that there's opportunities for us to be able to communicate that there is a tree ordinance, is pretty stringent, and that we, you know, we take it very serious. And so hopefully we have very few of these situations where the homeowner just is not informed. At least that's how it feels to me. I hope that you were honestly just cut the trees down, getting ready to prepare the lot to build a beautiful home. Likewise, welcome back to Minnetonka. Looks like you have great plans. I really applaud getting out and working with the neighbors, you know, getting it, and the neighbors actually even showing up in support of what you guys are doing in that community. In terms of my opinion on the $6,000 fine, you know, granted, you know, we definitely want to be fair, we want to be consistent, but mistakes happen, you know, and also it seems like with the investment you're making in the new trees that you're planting, it seems pretty expensive. So, you know, I would say maybe 4,000, 5,000, but again, that's just my opinion. You know, certainly not up to me, and I know staff has recommended what they believe is fair and consistent with other issues that we've seen in the past. But it does seem that it doesn't quite fit the crime, in my opinion. So I would be in favor of this variance and hope that you guys can break ground and build a beautiful home in Minnetonka.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll go quickly. Yeah, this is a no-brainer for me. I support the tree variance here. You made a mistake, a costly and expensive mistake, but you owned it and you're making it right as best you can. So it's kind of an easy decision for me. Now, I'm not going to pontificate and weigh in on how much the fine should be or shouldn't be. I'll let the council decide that and staff. But the reason we have such a robust tree ordinance is because that's what the residents of Minnetonka want. That's what they talk about. Read the survey. What do you like best about living in Minnetonka? You'll see trees and trails and parks, right? Followed closely by how awesome the planning commission is. But we don't do it because we like having a robust tree ordinance. I can't tell you how many hours in the last 8 years I've spent of my life talking about trees and tree ordinances. Probably make me sad, but we do it because that's what the people of Minnetonka want. They want the tree cover. It's important to them. So that's why we have such a stringent tree ordinance, and that's why we have to have accountability and enforcement. I mean, if the people didn't demand it, we just have a handshake and move on. But while I believe your mistake was honest, there's a whole line of people whose mistakes aren't honest. So, and unfortunately, we can't sit and judge on who's honest and who's not. So we have no ability to do that. So either way, we're not going to stand in the way of this. Let's get that house built, and let's get it built soon. And I'm excited for the neighborhood and for you to have a home here. So, with that, I think we're probably ready for a motion, and that motion would be to adopt the resolution approving the variance and order of stipulation for the redevelopment of 16808 Prospect Place. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'd like to make the motion.
Motion, Henry.
I'll second.
Second, Banks. Staff, please poll the commission.
Hanson?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
Banks?
Yes.
Chair Sewell?
Yes, motion carries. And this is a recommendation to the City Council to be heard on January 27th. Good luck with your project. Welcome back to Minnetonka. All right, moving on to item number 9.
Chair, if I
Yeah,
may,
please do.
before you move on, there were comments made about the ordinance and whether or not we should look at that. The council did discuss that in their priority list.
Okay.
That did not make the list.
Okay.
So, however, we're doing the zoning review over the next year and a half, and that is something on that list. So just so you understand the process and procedure for that, it won't get special attention, but it will be in that review, that total review.
Yep, and I think if we feel like the ordinance is falling short in some areas, we can share that feedback with the council. And at any
Absolutely.
point in time, they're
Yeah.
free to re-examine it
Yeah.
and go from there. So,
Excellent, thank you.
yeah, thank you for that. All right, now moving on to item number 9, adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make that motion.
Motion, Hanson.
I'll second the motion.
Second, Henry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Good night.